to hear, only one of which is eligible for a due pass as amended motion. The remaining bills are suspense items. We also have 3 bills that are still on the file that will go directly to the floor under 28.8 rule. Those measures are SB 721 Hill, SB 766 Monning, and SB 816 from the Education Committee. Since it's a new year, I'd like to reiterate our message to our audience and members that this testimony should be limited to the fiscal aspects only of the bill. These bills have received policy hearings in the past and have been debated accordingly. Again, Sergeants, if you can help us call our committee members and members who are not waiving presentation on their items. We will begin with moving on to Senator Leyva's item, SB 320. Witnesses in support, please come forward. Witnesses in opposition. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. I'm here as a concerned citizen and someone, a woman who has helped numerous women over the last 12 years with after abortion care, and would like you to consider and agree with, we want to minimize the negative impact of health concerns on students' studies and to facilitate retention and graduation. But I'd like to point out that we all have a reproductive story, all of us, and how we envision our future. Some of us, don't see children. Some see 1 or 2 or more in a reproductive story. And there are times when students are faced with unintended pregnancy, mistimed or unwanted, and it doesn't match that reproductive plan. But in response to that, there is surprise, there is shock, and whether or not we are for or against abortion here, it doesn't change the fact that life is not the same when there is a pregnancy, either wanted or unwanted. An abortion choice does not erase or undo an unintended pregnancy from our heart and mind, but instead leaves us to face potentially grief and loss either immediately or in the future. Psychology Today article states that we all encounter experiences in life where we are temporarily overwhelmed by a negative emotion, pressure, nervousness, despair, and confusion, and we can agree that an unintended pregnancy can bring that on to a student. But Psychology Today says in these situations, how we choose to master the moment can make the difference between being proactive and reactive. I believe this bill will increase reactive decisions out of a negative emotions with on-campus abortion access. I've had 2 unintended pregnancies myself, one at 16 and one at 19 when I was in college, and I did not have on-campus options for health care, for child care, for flex schedules or any of that sort, and my reactions were negative. And when confronted, I made a decision to abort out of reactive stress. Over the last 12 years, I've helped many women through their abortion care, and every woman did face a crisis, and in her decision like me, we were left changed. We wish we would have had more support when we were faced with our crisis in that decision-making process.
Yes, I just want to be respectful of your time and your testimony. We want to make sure we keep the arguments of the bill to the fiscal aspects.
Right.
We do appreciate your story.
Right, so I would ask to please consider a much greater benefit to fiscal spending if colleges and universities offered a safe and open environment for pregnant students with the resources they need, such as flex schedules, housing, transportation, on-campus care, prenatal care, and other expenses. This money would be better spent to help make a proactive choice and not a reactive choice. Thank you.
Senator Laura and members of the Senate Appropriations Committee, I'm Wynette Sills, Director of Californians for Life. We bring before you Tanya, and the story that I've distributed to each of you is Jessica. On behalf of women, much like Tanya and Jessica, who are pregnant and find themselves in a very desperate situation on campus, I'm asking each of you, are you pro-choice or are you pro-abortion? Because this bill is exclusively pro-abortion, and as an Appropriations Committee vote, this is estimated $13 million projected costs that could be better spent helping women like Jessica, you see in our testimony, as well as Tanya. Californians expect transparency. Will the list of donors to this fund be made public? Will the list of grantees and the amount of money they receive, along with the balance of the implementation fund, be available to the public? We don't even know how much this bill will cost, but what are the ongoing maintenance costs of this bill? Who will pay for the annual operating costs? In the remarks of at the Senate Education Committee last week, Senator Leyva said that student athletes who have abortions, they have abortions to avoid losing scholarships. I want to be very clear on the record that that is a clear violation of Title IX and will open up our university systems to civil litigation. If that is happening on our university campuses, that needs to be reported immediately to the civil rights officers in clear violation of Title IX. Just the ongoing cost of the pill itself is well over $3 million a year. The analysis suggests there will be 500 students per month times $600 a pill. That is $300,000 a month that will be required of this fund. What about the added costs of insurance, liability, and risk from malpractice for those student health center staff who are forced to violate their consciences, forcing them to work in conditions which end human life and hurt women? The next point I'd like to make is that the bill analysis says the bill does not require the expenditure of state funds. But, dear senators, the phrase "does not require" is far different than prohibit the use of state funds, state general funds. I provide for you a press release provided by State Treasurer John Chang, in that he had 12 years of service on the Board of Planned Parenthood and has a long history of diverting state funds to Planned Parenthood. And so to put him in charge of this implementation fund, if the intent of the author is to prohibit the expenditure of state funds for this effort, then it needs to say so explicitly and not use the phrase "does not require," because that's far different than prohibit. I'd like to present to you the chart showing the current proximity of a chemical abortion provider to each of our UC-CSU campuses. There is no lack of access to chemical abortion, and therefore I'm asking that the Appropriations Committee really look closely at the expenditure of funds in this direction when there is no unmet need. The progressive, forward-thinking, empowered, strong women of California increasingly reject this bill's notion that we must have abortion and end the life of our children in order for us to succeed and reach our educational and life goals. The demand for abortion is at an all-time low for California, as documented by the Sacramento Bee. And I'm asking, how many of our 23 CSU and 10 UC campuses have even expressed interest in applying for these abortion grants? So far, I haven't seen that in the bill analysis. I'd also like to bring to your attention a chart that shows the annual reports of the revenue in excess of expenses by each of the 7 Planned Parenthood affiliates here in the state of California. While their number of patient visits goes down each year, and even their number of abortions, both chemical and surgical abortions, go down, their amount of revenue in excess of expenditures is well over $10 million here in the state of California. And so if you are really pro-choice, if you are really concerned about helping women like Tanya and Jessica fulfill their educational goals, then why create an unnecessary mandate, an expensive mandate upon our university systems when the perceived need could be better addressed by the abortion industry as represented by Planned Parenthood, who already has well over $10 million in excess revenue in their account. And so it seems that this is really an urgent need. The author should be addressing the money in that direction rather than create a special fund here in the State Treasurer's office. I'd like to finish by, we've had Tanya, we've had Jessica's story highlighted in our testimony, the impact of this mandate upon women, young women on campus. The final story is Abby's story, and I hope her story rests in your heart as you make your decision on voting on this bill. She had the chemical abortion and passed clots the size of lemons, and to think that this would be happening in our dormitory rooms without even a triage emergency phone call number to make is really a sad situation for our students, and I believe we can do better than that. And I would respectfully ask that in this Appropriations Committee that we aim higher, that this is not even a pro-choice bill, but merely exclusively a pro-abortion effort, and women deserve better, and therefore I ask for a no vote on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Isabel Ponce with the California Catholic Conference in very strong opposition of this bill.
Marie Leatherby, Director of the Sacramento Life Center, in opposition.
Tricia Lewis, Board Member of California Alliance for Pregnancy Care Incorporated and Executive Director at Sierra Pregnancy and Health in Roseville, in opposition.
Greg Burt from the California Family Council in strong opposition. Thank you.
My name's Mary Sari. I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I plead with you, please don't do this to our girls. Thank you.
Al Romberg, asking you not to turn the California elected constitutional office of treasurer into a fundraiser and a manager for a chain of abortion clinics on the campuses, starting with the 34 public campuses and the community colleges. That's not the role of a treasurer. That shouldn't be an issue in elections, which it will become, of course. Vote no.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition. Seeing none, finance.
No file.
No file. Comments or questions from committee? Seeing and hearing none, this is a candidate for suspense. Without objection, we move this item to the suspense file. Moving on to Senator Portantino's items, SB Committee suspense file hearing today. We have SB 691 on the file for regular order, but the item was approved as a 28.8 and will go directly to the Senate floor. Just as a reminder for the public, all measures on the suspense file are up for vote only. Moving on to Senator Leyva's item, SB 320, that is a due pass recommendation. Secretary, please call the roll.
Laura?
Aye.
Laura, I. Bates? No. Bates, no. Bell? Aye. Bell, I. Bradford? Aye. Bradford, I. Hill? Hill, I. Nielsen? Nielsen, no. Wiener? Aye. Wiener, aye.
5-2, that item is out. Moving on to Senator McGuire's item.